Bizarre stories from the subscribers. Hello Leo Augusto, I'm Joanna, an 11-year-old. I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me on a Friday night. It was a night like any other. I was going to sleep so I could go to school the next day. However, I woke up late at night around 2 in the morning. Feeling the urge to pee, I got out of bed and went to the bathroom. I did what I had to do there, and when I was leaving the bathroom, I turned off the light. Right as I was passing through the door, when I stepped out, I felt a hand behind me, pushing my head down really hard, and at that moment the bathroom door slammed shut incredibly fast. It made a loud noise. I almost fell to the floor from that push. It wasn't the door that hit my head, because it doesn't go past the other side of the doorway. There was no way it could have been the door, I'm sure of it. I got really scared. I quickly looked back and there was no one there. I clearly felt that someone or something like a hand pushed my head down, and kind of out of fear, I was afraid to open the door to check inside the bathroom, but under the door, I could see a flashing light inside. It kept flickering like a malfunction, or whatever it was. I left the hallway light on, and I lay down again. However, I noticed that it also started flickering in the hallway. Now, every time I go into the other rooms at night, I always turn on all the lights in my house. I don't know if that solves it, but it makes me less scared. After that episode, nothing else abnormal happened here. Let's see until the next Friday the 13th if something weird like that will happen. Hello, my name is Guilherme. I'm a subscriber of your channel. I'm 13 years old and I'm going to tell you a story. When I was 10, my dad and I were getting ready to go to school. He always takes me, right? We went by motorcycle, and that day there was a really bad traffic jam on the road we always took. So he found a shortcut that led to my school, but when we passed through, there was a car coming toward us. It was coming really fast and looked like it was gonna crash into us, man. When I looked, Leo, I'm not kidding, man. I didn't see anyone in the car. I just saw the steering wheel moving by itself. My dad swerved, and when I realized it, the car crashed hard into a power pole, which almost fell over. I went to school that day shaking, man. And when I got back home, I saw a news report about a car that crashed into the pole. It was the same one from the shortcut we took. They said the owner of the car wasn't found, and with the speed it was going, it was hard for the driver to survive that accident. I wanted to know how the car was moving like that, man. The only conclusion I came to is that the guy's spirit took the car for his last test drive. My dad said he didn't notice if there was a driver or not because when he saw the car coming the wrong way, he immediately swerved onto the shoulder. You know, man, that was my story, Leo Augusto. Good thing we weren't caught by that car, man. And Leo? My name is Jair, and for a while, I was part of the construction team for a new commercial project in the city. During the excavation of the site for the foundations, something extraordinary happened. We found hidden underground tunnels, which were not just simple natural passages. They were full of cockroaches. At first, we thought it was just a historical isolated event, a curious discovery. But as we continued with the construction, strange events began to occur. Tools disappeared inexplicably. Strange noises echoed from the tunnels, and some workers reported catching glimpses of cockroaches of colossal size wandering in the dark. That shook all of us. It didn't make sense to find cockroaches of that size and in such numbers, let alone in such well-constructed tunnels. As the days went by, the atmosphere at the construction site became filled with tension and apprehension. The cockroaches, initially just a mere nuisance, became a mystery. One day, while I was working on the scaffolding, I saw one of those giant cockroaches emerging from the tunnel. Its movements were agile and intelligent, as if it were watching us. Studying each one of us, it was terrifying. As the weeks went by, more rumors emerged about these mysterious tunnels. Until one day, one of the workers had gone to a more remote area to get something, and after that, he didn't show up. The supervisor thought he had quit the job and deserted, but I was here the whole time. I didn't see him leave. Then a few weeks went by and we were about to set up the metal structures of the building when, by chance, while I was walking on the ground of that place, I ended up falling into one of those tunnels. The ground collapsed and I ended up in a chamber below. It seemed to be about 7 meters from where I was.
Of course, that was just an estimate because it was very dark in there.
With the weak light from the flashlight, I shone it around and found disturbing evidence of something that wasn't normal. Human remains, torn clothes, and a partially identified badge. I recognized it immediately. It was the badge of the missing colleague. I got chills all over at that moment, man. As I realized what that meant, he hadn't abandoned his job. Something terrible happened down there in those depths. Luckily, it seemed there weren't any creatures there at that moment. I managed to get back the same way, using my legs against the walls to climb up. Alarmed, I decided to immediately alert the site supervisor. I explained what I found down there, talked about those giant cockroaches, the strange disappearances, and the certainty that building a building on that land with so many tunnels made by those bizarre creatures wasn't safe. It was a challenge to convince the supervisor to stop this construction. After all, it was an important project for the city. However, with the evidence of the remains of the missing colleague, he realized the seriousness of the situation and the authorities stepped in. They immediately halted the construction to begin a thorough investigation into the case. They needed to try to understand the truth behind those tunnels and the terrifying cockroaches that appeared there. It was a mystery that needed to be solved before more lives were lost. Months later, I ended up changing professions and moved to another state, not knowing anything more about the case. But I'm sure those creatures weren't normal, and they won't leave that place easily. Hello, my name is Miguel. I'm 12 years old. This story didn't happen to me but to my mother. Before I was born, and before my younger brother was born, my mother was a girl named Giselle. At that time, she lived in a somewhat big house with my aunt, my grandmother, and my grandfather. One day, my mother was sitting on the couch watching television when someone knocked on the door of the house. She waited for an adult to come, and after a while, they stopped knocking on the door. She stayed on the couch until the knocking started again. No adult came since it was already late. They must have been sleeping. So she got up to see who was knocking. And when she looked through the peephole, she saw a bride all dressed in white knocking violently. She kept repeating the phrase,
"Let me in!
"Let me in!" My mom was shocked and the knocking kept going, man. Just banging on the door. The voice was really weird, and suddenly she saw the hand go through the glass. The woman was trying to reach the doorknob to get in. My mom ran to my grandma to tell her what had happened. Then the adults went to check what was happening. My grandpa was carrying a stick and my grandma had a big kitchen knife. When they opened the door, they found absolutely nothing. However, they saw the fist marks on the door and the shards of glass on the floor. The gate that led to the street was closed.
How could anyone have gotten in there?
It was a mystery. My grandmother, annoyed, told my mother to go to bed because it was already late at night. Days after that happened, my aunt started playing with an imaginary friend. Curious, my mother asked her who she was playing with. And this was the answer. With the bride who comes here every night. She's really nice, but she told me to do strange things and I'm still thinking about it. My grandparents sold that house and no one from my mother's side of the family ever set foot there again. Hello, Leo. I'm Mateus Pereira, 27. We decided to travel to Japan in one of those crazy moments of wanting to visit exotic places. I've always been fascinated by their culture, and Sophia, well, she was up for any adventure. We ended up in a remote area of Japan where there was this forest. The locals called it the forest of those who take their own lives. Being a skeptic, I thought it was just an urban legend. But Sophia, she had a sensitivity for these things, right? Ignoring the locals' warnings, we camped there. It was a strange night. Weird noises happened. Shadows that seemed to move on their own. A constant feeling of being watched. But we survived that night and returned to the city the next morning. This is where things get weird, Leo. Right after that night in the forest, she started to change. At first, I thought it was just tiredness from the trip, but these were changes beyond normal. Erratic behavior, empty stares as if something was consuming her from the inside. The worst was when I looked at her in a mirror and saw something that wasn't Sophia. It was a twisted, evil face. It looked like it was taking over her. A sinister presence reflected there. Where should her smile have been? I tried to talk about it, but she dodged it, saying I was imagining things. I went to research that forest and found some macabre stories. People going there and taking their own lives, as if something was influencing them. Sophia was being affected by it. It was obvious to me. I needed to save her. I went to get help, but when I came back home, she was gone. I didn't find any clues except for a strange note that said, "The forest wants us together. Now I'm here. It's been 5 years since I last heard from her. I keep trying to understand what happened that night. Wherever she is, it seems the forest chose us as part of its secrets, because I'm still here, searching for her all these years, hoping we can be together again." Hello, Leo Augusto. I'm Gabrielle, a 17-year-old who's quite fearful. The following story took place in 2022. I've always been afraid to watch horror movies and things like that. Every time a cousin or friend showed me something scary, like a video or a movie, I couldn't get it out of my head for weeks. But that year, I hadn't seen anything like that, or witnessed anything scary. Until that day, it was a normal night, just like any other. I usually take about 10 minutes to fall asleep, but that night I couldn't really get to sleep. I always sleep with my back to the wall so I can see the rest of the room, and I also sleep with the door closed, so no one bothers me while I sleep. My closet has a kind of shelf in the middle where I put some things. When I was almost falling asleep, I heard a noise like a marble falling from that shelf and bouncing about 3 times on the floor. Since my floor has a layer of wood on top, the sound was loud. I couldn't help but notice that this marble was falling and rolling toward the foot of my bed. I tried to ignore it and go back to sleep, but 2 minutes later, the same thing happened again. The problem is that I don't have any marbles. I started to feel hot from fear. I tried to cover myself up to hide from anything weird, but it just got even hotter, right? I gathered my courage, threw off all the covers, and it felt like I was on fire. About 3 minutes passed with me still feeling hot, and when I thought it was over, it happened a 3rd time. Then the heat finally went away, and I kept thinking, my God, man, there's no way this is happening to me. Could my room be haunted? My double bed is one of those spring beds, and it only sinks when I move, but I stayed still for a long time after the last noise. Then I felt the bed sinking next to me, like someone was lying down beside me. Man, at that moment, I jumped out of bed and went to my mom's room. I ended up sleeping with her for about 2 weeks, you know? I was traumatized. These days, I still sleep in the same room, but I always keep the fan on. Because if something scary happens, at least I won't hear it, man. Leo Augusto, I'm Davi. The other day, my mom shared a story with me that really affected me deeply. This happened back in 2018, you know, when we were on a trip from Brasilia to Cabo Frio. At that time, my mom was involved with a complicated guy. She broke up with him shortly before that trip. He was possessive and possibly dangerous. During the early morning hours, we were in a really sketchy situation. Unable to find a place to rest, that's when suddenly my mom spotted that crazy ex-boyfriend driving at a really high speed. She acted quickly, hitting the gas, and asked me to take off my headphones and look for a gas station on Google Maps. We found a station quickly, but the guy just drove past, man, staring straight at my mom. She described the scene as if he was radiating anger, like foam coming out of his mouth. A few days later, she got the news that he had been in a fatal accident that night. My mom only shared this story with me yesterday. At that moment, I don't think I realized how serious that situation was, you know? Because I was focused there playing my video game with my headphones on at high volume. Since then, every time I travel, I stay alert, constantly looking around as if I'm on watch. I believe he didn't stop at the gas station so the cameras wouldn't record him, right? If he came to do something to confront my mom, the guy should help, right? That's why I believe he planned to wait for us a few kilometers ahead. My mom was smart to turn around and go back in the opposite direction that this crazy guy went. It was one of those moments that make you rethink a lot of things. Hey Leo Augusto, this is Arthur. At the beginning of 2020, my brother and I changed schools and went to SESI.
I didn't really like going there because I didn't have many friends.
Since I was in elementary school, I left at 11:40 and my brother left at 12:30. It was customary after my classes for me to play with the friends I had made there. So I spent my time playing soccer, hide and seek, and so on. That day I went to the bathroom and after I finished my business I heard a laugh, man. I thought it was some student messing with me, you know. Since I was new there, they were messing with me. So I flushed the toilet and when I was washing my hands, I saw a girl walking behind me in the mirror's reflection. I decided to turn around to ask what she was doing in the men's bathroom. Are you lost or crazy? Did she come in by accident? But when I turned, no one was there. The next stall door moved. I crouched down to see if she was there, right? I would possibly see her feet. I only saw wet footprints on the floor. Once again, I hear a loud laugh. Scared, I ran out. But I slipped as I was leaving. The floor was wet. I ended up hurting my wrist trying to catch myself as I fell. But I managed to get out of there. I decided to tell them that I had seen a possible ghost to my classmates. I started to explain, but I was interrupted. They asked if it was a wet girl. The thing is, I hadn't mentioned that it was a girl. I confirmed it to them and asked how they knew that. They told me a creepy story involving that place. There was a pool for swimming lessons. One day, a boy and a girl got locked inside SESI board and waiting for someone to come and let them out. They went to the pool even though they didn't know how to swim. The boy pushed her into the pool and terrified, she couldn't survive. The next day they closed the place, and after that the pool was never used again. They say she's out for revenge, wanting to kill the boys from the school. Who knows if that's true or not? But one thing I know, that apparition was real. I haven't gone to that bathroom since then. Man, whenever I really need to go, I use any other place to relieve myself, except that bathroom. Thanks for giving me the opportunity here on the show, Leo. My name is Roger, and my family recently moved into an old house, a property that seemed to hold more secrets than we could imagine. Right after we settled into the house, we discovered something disturbing. A parrot came with the house. My parents asked the real estate agency about the animal, but they said that bird refused to leave. It was part of the place. So there we go, living with this animal that we don't even know. My father would take care of that later, right? So, alright. The nights were peaceful until a strange murmur echoed through the darkness of the hallways. A familiar yet unexpected voice broke the silence. That's when I decided to investigate in the shadows of the hallway. I heard him speak.
Hey, Fideo! There's no use hiding! Show yourself!
The parrot's voice broke the darkness, scaring the crap out of me. How could he know I was there? Could he hear the footsteps? Another night, his screams echoed through the rooms. Intruder here?
This is my house. Leave before it's too late.
The terror spread as I tried to convince myself that they were just the words of a bird. But the parrot's words were not just empty sounds. They coincided with dark events that happened to us in the house.
The bed is going to fall! The ceiling is going to collapse! Someone is going to fall down those stairs!
Each of those mysterious predictions seemed to come to life in that old house. My family tried to ignore it, but fear crept into every corner of that house. One night I woke up in a cold sweat. As I turned in bed, I came face to face with the piercing eyes of that parrot, as if it were watching me sleep. After months of inexplicable events, we decided to leave.
Get out before it's too late!
My parents tried to justify the move because of the condition of the house, but I knew the truth. That bird, with its sinister voice and its grim premonitions, had turned our lives into a real nightmare. And my friends, if you still haven't subscribed to this amazing little channel, go ahead and subscribe, my friend. Leave a comment down below too, alright? I'll be reading everything, guys. God bless you.